This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? All of you can hear me loud and clear? Dr. Kajal?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, I think you are the only one who have joined, so let's wait for another 5 minutes, then I'll start off. We're waiting
Yeah,
for
sure.
more people to join.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Okay. I think let's start off for the day. Kajal, you and Glenda, you are the only two people who have joined today. Glenda, can you hear me? Glenda, are you there?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so let's start off for the day, guys. And kindly please keep yourself in muted state. I'll give you some time to have a question and answer. Let me give you my brief introduction. My name is Abhay Agarwal, and I have been associated with Multisoft for almost 5 years now. And I started my career in 2001 after doing BCA, MCA, and MBA from Nursing Manji, Mumbai. I worked for 10 years in various organizations. I worked for IBM for 3 years, then GE Capital for 2 years, then American Express, and finally I left my job in 2010 after uh, from the United Health Group as a data scientist. And since last 9 years, I have been into training, development, and consulting, and I've delivered more than 1500 plus trainings on Python with machine learning and data science, along with the PMP, Unix shell scripting, SAS programming, and AIX platforms. So let's start off for today. This webinar is for 1 hour, and I'll be stretching it for some more time depending on the contents. So we're going to talk about what is machine learning, why it is so important, why everybody is talking about machine learning these days, what is the meaning of machine learning, how machine learning is related to deep learning and other concepts. So the agenda for today's session is why Python is more useful in machine learning field, what makes Python so popular. So as you know, most of the companies are shifting from SAS programming to Python programming and from traditional programming languages to Python programming. So we'll talk about major differences between Python and R and why Python is preferred over R. So R is also a programming language in which machine learning is done, and why Python is preferred mostly as compared to R, and what is the difference between them. So R also has its own benefits. We'll talk about industry trends in machine learning, how industries are moving, how machine learning can add values in different sectors in the business, how data science and machine learning fit into organization existing analytics. So most of the companies, they're doing a lot of analytics in terms of decision making. So how machine learning is helpful in decision making. How organization operationalize models driven by data science and machine learning. Different types of machine learning: supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement. So machine learning again has been classified into three categories. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about machine learning use case in PFSI sector, automotive industry, healthcare, manufacturing, telecom, and retail. What are neural networks? What are the popular frameworks for neural networks and deep learning? How GPUs are used in training models. So why Python is so popular and who is making use of Python? So Python is a very old programming language, and it came into existence when people come to know about its power using libraries like pandas, numpy, matplotlib. So Python is a very powerful programming language which has got almost 65,000 libraries in it. Libraries are nothing but the header files which you include on top of your code. And most of the companies, like popular companies like YouTube, Google, Dropbox, Raspberry Pi, BitTorrent, NASA, NSA, Netflix, all are using Python for a long time. And what all are the market players today? They have been using Python for almost 10 years now. And they developed the code in Python 2.7, which was a very popular version, which came into existence in 2008 or so. So most of the companies are working on 2.7 and still working on 2.7, and they're not shifting to 3.x version. Reason being 2.7 is the most popular version of Python. There is no difference in the terms of computational power in both the versions, but the syntactically they are different. So that's the only drawback with only one drawback with Python is that syntactically Python 2.7 is very different from 3.x. So if you install 2.7 and write down the code, you cannot shift to version 3.x and vice versa. So these are the big companies who have been using Python for the long time. Why Python is so popular? Because of many reasons. It's very simple in programming. It's more like an English language, no jargons which are difficult to understand or difficult to remember. It's very easy programming language. It is an open source. You can install Python in your Unix machine, Linux machine, Ubuntu, Solaris, HPUX, Windows, and shift the code from one machine to another. If you have written the code in Mac OS, you can shift your code to the Windows. Only you need to change the paths and everything. And when you're reading some external file, you need to change the path. Other than that, you don't have to change any piece of the code. Everything remains same. So it's a very much platform independent programming language. It is a very high level programming language. So what all other programming languages like Java, C++, other programming languages can do, Python can also do the same thing. It requires a very low level. We do not have to remember the low level details in Python. Like we don't have to remember the memory allocation, how memories are getting cleaned up. So garbage collection is something which is automatic in Python. Let me show you one small example for the same. So once you install Python, this tool comes automatically called Python idle. This Python idle tool is used as an interpreter. So Python is both interpreted and compiled programming language. Suppose you declare any variable a as 10. So we don't have to declare data type in Python. We don't have to say int a or float a. And we say type of a, you come to know it's an integer type. Suppose you declare b as 10 again, and type of b, it's again an integer. And if you say id of a, id will tell you the memory address of a, and id of b. So you can see when the variable contains the same value, the memory is not getting wasted. In C programming language, other programming languages, when you declare two variables, they take the two different memory spaces. But here, memory space is not getting wasted. Both the variables are taking the same memory space. So garbage collection is something which is automatic in Python. We don't have to worry about garbage collection. It is very much portable. You can shift your code from Linux to Windows, Windows to FreeBSD, Macintosh, Solaris, any of the operating systems. You can shift your code from one machine to another. It supports different programming paradigms. So Python is an object-oriented programming language. You can write down your own classes. You can leverage inheritance, encapsulation, polymorphism. Everything is there. Whatever is there in the object-oriented programming language. It supports regular expressions as well. Suppose you want to search and replace certain contents of a document, you can easily do it. Python codes can be invoked from C++ libraries. It can be called from any C++ program. So Python is very much extensible. It can integrate with any other programming language. Like you might have seen in the web pages, JavaScript is generally written. So you can write down the Python script also there. You can call the Python from a .NET framework. You can call a Python from C++ code or C programming, and it is very much extensible in nature. So what makes Python so popular? Because of improved programmers' productivity. So number of lines of code that you write in Python is one third the lines of code that you write in other programming languages. For example, you write 100 lines of code in Java, you just need 30 lines of code in Python to do the same thing. It is very extensive in library support. As I told you, it has got 65,000 libraries there in it. It has an integration feature. We can integrate a Python code with a C++ code or a Java code. It improves the productivity of a programmer in terms of writing lesser number of lines of code, lesser to write, lesser to maintain, lesser to debug. So all this increases the productivity of a programmer. It is very much robust in nature. So Python codes are very much robust. It can be scalable to any level. Suppose you write down a Python code in Windows machine. Now tomorrow you wanted to shift to Hadoop ecosystem, you can do that. It has a program portability. You can port your program from Windows to Linux, Linux to Ubuntu, Ubuntu to HPUX, any kind of operating system. It is very much interactive, interpreted, and dynamic programming language. So it is very much interactive in terms of writing the code. You can interact with the user, takes the input, cron tab the jobs. You can do the interpreted programming as well. For example, in idle, you can write down single line of code and it works. For example, when you say, let's say name equal to John and age is 20, so you can simply print some messages. Name is name and age is age. The name is John and age is 20. You can take an input from the user as well. Suppose I take a name as an input. Please enter your name, and we say name is Amit, and you can simply print name is. So you can take an input from the user. You can take an integer type input as well. Suppose you say age is equal to int of input. Please enter age, and I say 30. You can print age entered is. So you can take an integer type input. You can take a string type input. String concatenation is there. You don't have to worry a lot when you are trying to concatenate strings. Suppose I say first name equal to Amit and last name equal to, sorry, last name equal to Singh, last name equal to Singh. So you can concatenate full name equal to first name plus some space plus last name. So full name becomes Amit Singh. So plus operator is working like a concatenation. So it's pretty easy syntactically. If you have to do the same thing in C programming, you need more efforts to do the same thing, but in Python it's quite easy to do. It is very much object-oriented programming language. You can write on your own class, you can inherit it, you can do polymorphism, you can do abstraction, you can do encapsulation. So all the concepts of object-oriented programming is leveraged over here. So if you see the job trends in Python and machine learning, you'll see the tremendous increase since 2017. It is kept on increasing. So there is a huge demand of Python. This blue color line, if you see, there is a huge demand of Python with data science and machine learning, and it is kept on increasing. So if you go to Indeed.com and you can filter out the trend of job postings, you'll find Python is on the top. Similarly, this is for the Google Trends. So if you see the Google Trends, 99 jobs are pertaining to Python, 60, as compared to 66 in PHP, 11 in 5 in Scala, 11 in Ruby, and 36 in R. Now, if you compare Python with R programming language, Python is the king of data science of programming languages, and R is the golden child of data science. So R is something which is not very much exhaustive in nature. It is like an Indian Ocean, and Python is something like a Pacific Ocean. Python has got 65,000 libraries. R do not have those many libraries. So R is generally used by the companies who want to see the reports within the organization. Suppose I am a banking domain company and I want to generate reports to share it with my senior management. I can do R programming and get it beautifully, a good report having a lot of graphs into it and a lot of analytics into it. But suppose you want to create a web framework, you want to develop a web framework wherein you want to take an input from the user, share it with the end user. You want to authenticate the user using login ID and the password. You want to do web scraping. You want to develop a front end application. So Python is a programming language which can do end-to-end development, but R is not a programming language which can do end-to-end development. You cannot connect R to the AWS server. You cannot develop a front end in R. You cannot develop a web interface in R. So R is a more of a statistical tool rather than a programming language, but Python is a complete programming language which can do end-to-end programming. Python is very broad in nature, efficient, flexible, extensible. R is also a robust environment, but again, it is not scalable in nature. Popular libraries in Python are NumPy, SciPy, Matplotlib, and Pandas. So Pandas is the library for data analytics. This is the one library which has more than 500 functions in it, which can do data and manipulation, data wrangling, data cleaning, data munging, uh, um, data sorting. So any kind of a database handling or any kind of a data handling pertaining to any of the external source can be done through Pandas. So for example, I'll show you one website. So if you go to this website, pandas.pydata.org, so you can see pandas can read data from any of the external source. Let it be a CSV file, let it be a fixed format, JSON file, HTML, local clipboard, MS Excel. So you can read the data from any of the external files, write it back like form Hadoop format, Feather format, Parquet format, message pack, Strata, SAS. So you can read the data into Pandas data frame from any of the external sources, do some data manipulation, and write it back to those external sources. Now, popular applications of Python is a Dropbox, various plugins in Python created in Python. In R programming is widely used in industries for data-driven decision making. So generally, companies who want to share the reports within the organization and want to do some analytics, they use R programming. And companies who want to do end-to-end development, they use Python programming. So if you talk in short, Python is very much scalable in nature, and it can do each and everything whatever you are expecting. But R can do analytics and machine learning, but you cannot develop a front-end application in R. Do we have any questions as of yet now? Um, you can unmute yourself if you have any questions up till here. Okay, so no questions. Okay, so let's move on. So if you talk about evolution of machines, if you talk about 20 years or 30 years back, people are more worried about the hardware scalability rather than software scalability. So people are more worried about the storage space or the processing speed. So you see, in the last 30 years, there's a lot of evolution has happened in the hardware industry. Most of the computers, like we used to use floppy drives, then CD-ROM came, then pen drive came, then CPU processing also increased tremendously. People were more towards a mainframe storage wherein they can store terabytes of data. Now Hadoop and ecosystem and Spark ecosystem is there in the current world. So evolution has started from the hardware side and it has been moved to the software side. And nowadays, people are no more worried about the hardware problems. They are more worried about the scalability and software solutions. So evolution of machines is there for the last 25 to 30 years. And artificial intelligence is a very old concept which came into 1950s. The idea of artificial intelligence came into existence in 1956. So artificial intelligence is nothing but mimicking human behavior. So anything and everything what is mimicking human behavior is called artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is a big umbrella in which robotics come, bioinformatics comes, machine learning comes. So artificial intelligence is something which is mimicking human behavior. So what happens within the internet in a minute? So why artificial intelligence is required? Because it is impossible for humans to uh, manipulate or manage this explosion in data. So if you see this explosion in data means like 204 million emails sent every minute, 20 new victims to identify theft have been caught every minute. 61,141 hours of music has been uploaded every minute. 20 million photo views happens in 1 minute. So worldwide, if you see the explosion of data is very huge, and it is not possible for any organization or any people to manage that kind of a huge explosion in data. We need to rely on machines for automation. We need to rely on machines for taking decisions on its own, and that is why machine learning came into existence. Machine learning is nothing but predicting the future based on historical data. So if we talk about a layman terms, machine learning is nothing but taking the historical data and predicting the future. So if I give you the uh, last 20 years data of humidity, rainfall, temperature, and crop yield, and if I ask you to predict the crop yield, then it is machine learning. So machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence, which is mimicking the human behavior and predicting the future with a great accuracy. So if you talk about what is machine learning, so let me give you the bigger picture. So suppose this is an umbrella of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is something which is mimicking human behavior. Machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence, which is predicting the future, and deep learning is a subset of machine learning. So deep learning is also predicting the future, but on a high dimensionality of the data. Suppose you want to predict an image has got a red, blue, and green pixel. So if you want to predict whether the image belongs to a human or belongs to a dog or belongs to a bird, you train your machine or you feed in thousands of images, machine understands those images, and later on when you supply a new image, machine can find out which image it is. So deep learning is a subset of machine learning, which is again predicting the future, but more on more complex data. Machine learning is predicting data on two-dimensional data primarily. So we have a lot of algorithms in machine learning like linear regression, like logistic regression, like random forest, like decision trees, like support vector machines. We have different algorithms, statistical algorithms, which is predicting the future for us. So machine learning is all about predicting the future, and it is a subset of artificial intelligence. So this is this diagram which I have shown you. So data science is a bigger domain in which artificial intelligence comes. Artificial intelligence has a subset of machine learning. Machine learning has a subset of deep learning. Artificial intelligence is a technique which enables machine to mimic human behavior. Machine learning is a subset of AI which uses statistical methods to enable machine to improve with experience or predicting the future. Deep learning is a subset of ML which makes computational layer or neural network feasible. Here we can work on high dimensionality of a data like image processing. Now question come, how data science and machine learning fit into organization existing analytics. So if you see, machine learning is something, data science is a big domain. Machine learning is something which every company wants to do. Why they want to do? They want to predict the future. Suppose I'm a manufacturing company. If I come to know in the coming quarter my sales are going to be doubled, I'll focus more on manufacturing rather than marketing. If I come to know my sale is not going to be that much in the coming quarters, I'll focus more on marketing rather than production. Suppose you book a Ola cab, you come to know, okay, my cab is going to reach me in another 10 minutes. You're predicting the future. Suppose you talk to Alexa device. Alexa device understands human voice and it converts into vectors internally, vectors in the terms of context-free grammar. Then it understands what are the nouns, pronouns, adjectives in it, and based on that, it takes some decisions and predicting what you are saying. So all these things are the application of machine learning. So machine learning is uses various techniques for supervised clustering. There are three types of machine learning: supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement. I'll come to that. So the main difference is that the data science is a broader term, not only focuses on algorithm and statistics, but takes care of the entire data processing methodology. So if you talk about data science is not only machine learning, not only statistics, not only programming language, not only visualization in terms of graph, not only fetching the data from the external sources. It's a combination of all this. Handling data depending on the domain knowledge, using machine learning into it, filtering the data, munging it, cleaning it, storing in database, use statistical models to analyze it, use visualizations to plot the graphs. So it's a combination of all the things. Data science is a multidisciplinary kind of a area wherein it is a combination of all the areas. So what is the data science methodology? Generally, if we talk about a problem, then we formulate a question. First of all, we should have a business understanding, and we formulate a question. What is the question in our mind which we need to answer? Then we gather the data based on that question. We gather data from the external sources or from the web scraping or from the company's internal sources, and then we analyze the data by plotting some graphs, filtering out the data, munging it, cleaning it, merging it, and finally, once we analyze it, we create a product and deploy it on the server so that we can reuse it. So it's a complete cycle having four broader areas: formulate a question, gather the data, analyze the data, and finally create a product. Now there are two approaches of data science. First is top-down approach. Top-down approach means we have a question in our mind, we use our domain knowledge, we gather the information, and finally come to the facts. Another is a bottom-up approach. Suppose we have a data in hand, we don't know the question, but we analyze the data, then we gather the information from the data. Using the domain knowledge, we use problem solving skills. For example, Amazon. Amazon has a huge amount of data about every customer, like KYC details, his purchase histories, his spending power, frequency of purchase. And Amazon can leverage that, like who all are the customers who buy the high-end products, who all are the customers who are frequent in buying grocery items, and send promotional emails to them. So that is a bottom-up approach. We have a data there with us, then we try to solve problems based on the data that is there in our hand. In top-down approach, we gather the data, we have a problem, then based on that, we gather the data and we solve the problem. So there are two approaches in data science. Depending on the scenario, people uses either of the approaches, top-down or bottom-up. Do we have any questions up till yet? Any questions from anyone?
Sir, which approach is most suitable for it?
It depends on the problem area. It depends on what you're trying to solve. It depends on the area. Like suppose you're a company having a lot of information there with you, then you will use the bottom up approach because you already have a data there with you and you want to solve the problem based on that data. You formulate the question based on data. For example, if I want to filter out the customers who are very frequent in buying some products in Amazon, I can use the data in the system and figure it out who all are the frequent customers and send some promotional emails to them, that if you buy more items, we will give you 20% discount more. So that is
Okay,
a
thank
bottom approach. Mostly companies use bottom up approach because most of the companies have the huge amount of data there with them and they want to use the data for improving the business. Top down approach are generally used by the research based companies who want to solve the problem and then they find out from where I can get the solution.
thank you,
So
sir.
if you see, okay, thank you. So if you see, machine learning can add a value to different sectors, and you can see every sector is today using machine learning for predictions. The bigger the circle means the bigger the impact, and you will see it is used for identify and navigate roads. It is used to predict personalized health outcomes. It is used to discover consumer trends, predictive maintenance for energy, diagnosing a disease, optimize clinical trials. So you can see the volume is from 0 to 10, let's say in a scale of 0 to 10, and the impact is again 1 to 1.9. You see the maximum impact is there in personalized advertising, navigation of the roads, financial products, identify fraudulent transactions. So these are the areas which are highly used in media, telecom, finance, healthcare. So these are the areas which are highly impacted by machine learning, and most of the companies are using predictive analysis to do the same. So if we talk about how organization operationalize models based on data science, so lighter the column is lesser the impact, the darker the column is high impact. And you see the real-time optimization in automotive, manufacturing, consumer, agriculture, energy. Most of the sectors are using machine learning to optimize their solutions for forecasting, for predictive analysis, for real-time optimization. So every industry is somehow, some way or the other, using machine learning for improving their business. So Netflix is using machine learning to recommend movies. So there's something called recommendation engine. Suppose you watch thriller movies and you are interested in mostly watching thriller movies, Netflix is recommending you which all movie you can watch. So Netflix is one platform which is using recommendation engine based on the history of the consumer or the viewer, what exactly he's watching, and based on that it searches for the other users who watch the same kind of movies and then recommend it. So recommendation engines is something which is used by Amazon for selling of the goods, used by Netflix for recommendation engines. Similarly, Facebook tags. So if you click on any, or if you just move a mouse pointer to any of the photograph, you will come to know the name of a person. So that is image recognition that is using deep learning algorithms to figure out what is the name of a particular person. Similarly, Alexa device. If you talk in front of Alexa, Alexa understands your context, what you are saying, and taking some decisions. So this is again an implementation of machine learning. Spam filtering. So in your email box, you get the emails. So automatically system is figuring out there's any keyword like lottery, there's another keyword like price, and filtering out those emails out of the inbox. Spam filtering is again one of the applications of machine learning. So machine learning is the future of industry, demand for today, and more than 2 million jobs globally by the end of 2019. So already since the beginning of 2020, because of the situations today, because of COVID situation, of course, recession is there. But if it was not there, then there were 2 million jobs globally by the end of 2019. People predicted it last year. So machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence, which provides systems and machines the ability to learn automatically and improve from experience without being explicitly programmed. So once you develop a code for machine learning, you don't have to rewrite the code again and again. You just need to feed more and more data, and the algorithm automatically takes care of the huge amount of data and improving day by day. So you don't have to tweak the code every time. Once code is written, you can reuse the code for a small amount of data, then larger, and then very larger amount of data, and then automatically the improvement happens because it gets more permutation combinations internally to figure it out how independent variables are related to dependent variables. So machine learning prerequisite is that the data has to be huge, it has to be very large, so that better combinations can be made between independent and dependent variables. Another condition is that data has to be research based, it has to be true, it should not be hypothetical. If your data is hypothetical, the predictions are going to be hypothetical. So data has to be correct, it has to be research based, it has to be proven. So for an end user, it looks like machine has got capability of thinking, but internally, you as a programmer tell, okay, which algorithm you have to use for prediction. You want to use decision tree, you want to use random forest, you want to use support vector machine. So you as a programmer feed in that algorithm. So algorithms are already inbuilt in Python. There's a library called sklearn which has all these algorithms. You don't have to write anything from scratch. You don't have to remember the statistical formulas. You just need to call the sklearn library, from sklearn.linear model, import linear regression, and the algorithm is there in place. You just need to feed in the data into it. And once you feed in the data, you directly get the slope and intercept. So for any algorithm, for decision tree, you'll get to know the Gini index and different types of nodes. For naive-Bayes classifier, you come to know the conditional probability. So all these algorithms already in place. You just need to call them, feed in the data into it. Algorithm will find out the relationship between independent and dependent variables, and then you can use the same equation to predict something in future. So there are basically three types of machine learning: supervised machine learning, wherein you know the data completely. Supervised machine learning means you know the data completely, you know the input, you know the output, you know what your data is talking about. For example, all the KYC details of a customer, telecom details of a customer, banking details of a customer, you know what data is talking about. So supervised learning is where you have an input variable X and output variable Y. So any data in which you know the input and the output, it is known as a supervised machine learning algorithms. So any data which is known to you, you use algorithms like linear regression, logistic regression. These are the supervised machine learning algorithms. It is called supervised learning because the process of algorithm learning from the training data set can be thought as a teacher supervising the learning process. So in simple layman terms, supervised machine learning is one wherein you know the data completely and you use the algorithms for supervised learning like linear regression, logistic regression, decision trees. So supervised machine learning is something we feed in the predefined images to the machine and we know what is duck and what is not a duck. And then you create a model which can predict anything when the new image comes. So for the new input, it can predict whether it's a duck or not. So if we talk about supervised machine learning use cases, the use cases are document classifier. So you know what type of document it is, whether it's a Word document or a PDF document or a PowerPoint presentation. Another application can be weather prediction. You know the data for the last 20 years, what is the weather, what is the temperature in the morning, and for last 20 years you know and you want to predict for tomorrow, you can do that. Similarly, fingerprint analysis, you know the fingerprints, what are the pixel values in the particular fingerprint. So that is again a supervised machine learning algorithm wherein we know what the data is talking about. So these are the popular algorithms for supervised machine learning: linear regression, logistic regression, decision tree, random forest, naive-bayes classifier. Unsupervised learning is something where we do not know the data completely. For example, an archaeologist finds a bone deep inside the earth. He do not know whose bone it is. He do not know which animal bone is it. So what he will do, he will find the color of the bone, texture of the bone, shape of the bone, size of the bone, and compare it with the historical data. Once he compares it, he'll come to know that okay, this bone belongs to a dinosaur category. So in unsupervised machine learning, we do not have a dependent variable. We have just an input there with us. We need to do clustering. So all the clustering algorithms belongs to unsupervised machine learning. For example, if I give you the debit and credit balances of 100 customers to you, I do not give the account number, their names. Still, you can figure it out whom to give a credit card and whom not to give, because you find the hidden features over there. So in unsupervised machine learning, we find the hidden features in the data. For example, a preschool kid, a 2 years or 2.5 years kid, if you give a shape to them, he do not know what is square, what is circle, do not know the name of those shapes, but we cluster all the squares together, circles all together. So that is example of unsupervised machine learning where we do not know the data completely. Still, we can categorize based on similarities. So based on similarities, we can categorize the data. All the ducks or the birds are together. All the canine animals are together. All the herbivorous animals are together. So based on similarities in characteristics, we are clustering together. So use cases of unsupervised machine learning is party in the house. Suppose there is a party going on in the house and some singer is singing. So without looking at the face of a singer, by just listening the voice, you can predict what is the name of a singer. That is an example of unsupervised machine learning, wherein you do not know the data, you do not know the voice, but still you can predict what is the name of a singer. Similarly, in the football match, suppose two teams are playing, you do not know the match, you do not know the basics of football match, but you can still figure it out from the dress code, what the dress code they are having. One team is against another, so based on the dress code, you can figure it out which team is winning or which team is losing. Recommendation system is again unsupervised machine learning. So Amazon server do not knows whether it's a cosmetic item or it's a food product or it's a electronic item, but based on the similarities, it is clustering together all the items. And based on the similarities of the users, suppose I buy mostly things which are below 10,000 rupees. So all the customers who are on the same category as mine, they will cluster it together. And whatever they purchase, other people purchase, Amazon is going to recommend me the same thing because Amazon knows my spending power is below 10,000. So it's looking for a like customers, similar customers like me, and what they are purchasing, Amazon is going to recommend it to me. So that's another application of unsupervised machine learning. And popular algorithms in unsupervised machine learning is k-means clustering, a priori algorithm, hierarchical clustering, k-nearest neighbors. So these are the popular algorithms of unsupervised machine learning. Now comes the reinforcement learning. Reinforcement learning means learning with experience, slow and gradual learning. Suppose you want to train a machine by giving slowly and gradually every day some 100 images, and you want to make a manless car. So it cannot be done in a single day. In a simulated environment, you supply 100 images, then the next day you supply another 100 images. Keep on giving the images to the machine, and take some decision whether it's right or wrong. On the wrong decisions, you give some policies, and keep on supplying images for years. The time will come, system knows all the images, what decision to take, and that is example of reinforcement learning. So there's a famous Pavlov's dog theory in reinforcement learning. So Pavlov was having a dog. He used to daily feed that dog. So one day he thought of ringing a bell and then give a food to a dog. So he did the same thing for 10 days. He rings a bell, give a food to a dog, rings a bell, give a food to a dog. On the 10th day, he understand that the natural stimulus of salivation has been converted to induced stimulus. The dog which was salivating by looking at the food, now dog is salivating by hearing the bell. So he converted the natural stimulus of salivation to the induced stimulus. So that is a reinforcement learning, slow and gradual learning. You cannot train a dog in a single day by ringing a bell and giving a food to a dog. You can't do it in a day. You keep on giving the same pattern again and again, and after 10 days, dog get trained. So what we can do with machine learning? The question comes, and the answers are many. We can find out the market value of the house using machine learning. We can find out whether mail is spam or not. Is any fraudulent transactions happening in the account or not? Which type of house lies in which segment? All these answers can be easily driven using machine learning. Now, what are the use cases of machine learning? Classification algorithms are the use cases. Is the person male or female? Is the mail spam or not spam? Healthcare, finding cancer and malignant or benign. In the retail business, classification of high or less selling products, market basket analysis. There is an algorithm in Python called a priori algorithm, which is doing market basket analysis, association rules. You can find out whether what is the support of the item, what is the confidence in selling out, what is the lift required in the particular item. So that is again a market basket analysis used by mostly online shopping portals. We can use for anomaly detection. Is there any fraud in the transaction or not? Is someone trying to hack our network or not? Telecom domain, we can find fraudulent calls. We can use regression algorithms for finding the market value of the house. Is it going to be rainy day tomorrow or not? So these are all regression problems, finding a relation between independent and dependent variables based on continuous data. We can use for clustering which type of house lies in which segment, what type of customer buys which product. Application of reinforcement learning is manless cars. In manufacturing industry, robotics getting mature for faster manufacturing. And if you talk about BFSI sector in the banking domain, we can use for resource management, we can use for predictive analysis, finding the new patterns, offering personalization feedbacks to the particular machine. For example, when you go to ICICI Bank website, it is more of a personalized view as a dashboard you see rather than a generalized view. So we can give a personalization to a customer that banking is done for you only as a priority customer rather than a generalized view. So all these things can be implemented using machine learning of predicting something in the future and finding out the trends what the user is doing. So we can, if you talk about a clustering use cases, we can use it for marketing, discovering distinct groups in customer database, such as customers who make a lot of long distance calls. So we can cluster all the customers who are making long distance calls, and we can offer some discounts to them to promote more calls. For insurance industry, identifying the crop insurance policy holders with high average claim rate. So insurance industry uses machine learning to predict whether this customer is going to ask for a claim after some time or not. So that is very important for an insurance company. Before giving policy to a customer, the company predicts whether this customer is going to ask for claim in the upcoming future or not. For land use, identification of areas to similar land use using GIS database. For seismic studies, wherever the historical data is there, where the earthquakes were there, or explosions, or oil or gas exploration is there, it figures it out whether it is going to happen in future or not. So this is a very important area. Like most of the volcanoes which are coming as live, scientists predict what in the upcoming time what new volcanoes can be there. This is something which is for natural language processing. So again, NLP is a subset of machine learning, which is talking about clustering based on the content. So if I give you a big document having Donald Trump written there 100 times, then document can be classified as the document belongs to Donald Trump. It is more towards the political side. So we use k-means clustering for clustering out the data which are of similar nature. We can plot the students in an area. Suppose you want to open a new school, you can use clustering algorithms to figure it out how many customers are there, how many prospect students are going to be there. So we'll search for a locality wherein number of teenagers or number of kids are higher as compared to the old age people. So if you talk about deep learning, as I told you, is a subset of machine learning, which is working on high dimensional data. So application of deep learning is colorization of the images, identifying the image, classifying it. For example, for example, in the real time, you move a mobile or Google Lens in front of a shop. The Google Lens automatically finds out whether this shop has what rating, what menu card it is having, if it is a restaurant, or what people are talking about it. So that is again image recognition. So deep learning is a particular kind of machine learning that achieves greater power and flexibility by learning to represent world as a nested hierarchy of concepts of abstraction. So it is talking about more of a image recognition, text classification, text or the image colorization based on the bird. Suppose you supply image of a bird which is in gray style, system can colorize it based on the historical data, the similarities of the bird with some other bird. So deep learning can figure it out what type of shape it is, whether it's closed or not, whether it's perpendicular. It can filter out the images. Suppose you supply 100 images of cat and dog, then this deep learning algorithm uses neural networks. It uses a library called TensorFlow and Keras and figure it out for the new image, whether it's a cat or a dog. So if we talk about deep learning is a subset of machine learning. So deep learning is no new concept. Only thing is deep learning can work on high dimensionality of a data. When the data is having high dimensions, we use deep learning. Machine learning is used when the data has 2 dimensions. If you talk about the amount of data and the performance, deep learning algorithms are very good in accuracy. The predictions made by deep learning algorithms are almost near to 100%. But when the data is very large, performance may decline. But old machine learning algorithms is very good in performance for a large amount of data, and it can work on a 2-dimensional data. Now people were worried about the hardware dependencies. Now it is no more there because we already have a very robust hardware systems there with us. We have ecosystems like Hadoop and Spark for parallel processing. So we are not dependent on any hardware challenges as of now. But yes, for deep learning, it's more of a modification going on. Every company is trying to leverage deep learning algorithms. So deep learning is a concept given by Google. Google made the deep learning algorithms like TensorFlow or libraries like TensorFlow and Keras, which was a paid one, but recently for the last 2 years they have made it as an open source. And there are a lot of competitors. Microsoft is competing to create its own architecture for machine learning using .NET. So companies are competing for creating their own machine learning and deep learning architectures. So if we talk about deep learning, we have different layers in it. We have an input layer, we have a hidden layer, we have an output layer, and data is driven from one layer to another at a different level of abstraction. So all the image recognition problems are getting solved by the deep learning algorithms, like traffic lights. Is it a traffic light? What type of symbol it is for the road sign? What type of vehicle it is? And we have a popular libraries like Theano, CNTK, Julia, Keras, Chainer. We have different libraries or frameworks for deep learning. So in the deep learning, again, the same methodology is there. We divide the data into two parts, training and testing. Maybe 70% data into training, 30% into testing. We create algorithm, or we feed the algorithm with 70% data. Once model understands the relationship between independent and dependent variables, we supply the testing data to predict. So it uses the same architecture. Now it's a time for execution. It means this is the right time when most of the companies are moving towards the deep learning and machine learning side. So it's the right time that you learn it beforehand as compared to the other people and try to develop your skills based on it. It will take good amount of time. So if you start today, it will take minimum 2 months for you to come up to the level that you can clear any kind of an interview or crack any kind of an interview or develop some kind of a project, because it is not only Python which is required to be understood. You need to be very good in stats as well, because all the machine learning algorithm has is utilizing statistical models, all the algorithms of stats. So it's a multidisciplinary approach. You need to be good in programming, you need to be good in regular expression, good in object-oriented programming, then good in pandas, numpy, and matplotlib, three libraries which are used for data analytics. And then last step comes as machine learning. So machine learning algorithms, again, every algorithm is itself a big ocean. You need to go step by step, and it's a long journey basically. So this is a machine learning portfolio, like which is having a lot of things you need to understand in order to uh, become a data scientist. You need to know the big data analytics. Big data analytics. You need to know Hadoop architecture, Spark architecture, different type of supervised machine learning algorithm, unsupervised machine learning algorithm. You should be aware of robotic framework, computer vision, image processing, deep learning algorithms, TensorFlow. So this is a complete portfolio which you need to develop slowly and gradually to get a very handsome job as a data scientist. Any questions for anyone? So this is on my side. I know I've gone little fast because the limitation of time of 1 hour. So it's now a question and answer time. You can ask any question from me. I'll address it. You can unmute yourself and ask questions from me if you have any.
Thank you very much, sir, for the wonderful knowledge you shared with us.
Yeah, thank you. So, Kajal, you're working on this area of machine learning or data
Yes, sir,
analytics?
I'm working in this area. Python is new for me. I'm trying to learn it. But machine learning, yes, of course, I know many algorithms in that.
Okay. So Python is an easy programming language. If you have any experience of other programming languages, it is quite easy for you to understand it. If you know C programming, I would say it is a cakewalk for you.
Yeah. Some functions I know in Python, but machine learning, I'm trying to learn more about it.
Sure, sure. So there are a lot of resources available on YouTube, on different social media platforms, as well as a lot of uh, algorithms already there. There's a very good book of statistics called Fundamental of Stats by S.C. Gupta and V.K. Kapoor. So if you Google it out, I'll write down the name of that book. It's a very good book for statistical understanding. That is
Thank you.
Fundamental of Statistics by S.C. Gupta and V.K. Kapoor. So this is a very good book. So if you Google it out, you'll find a soft copy of this book easily. So this book is having all the statistical algorithms, not algorithms, I can say it's not like directly linear regression you'll find there or logistic regression you'll find there, but you'll find the statistical fundamentals like what is mean, median, mode, p-value,
Okay.
q-value, t-value. Statistical inference can be easily found out from this book, which is very much required. You should know what is standard deviation, what is covariance, what is variance, what is
Yes.
kurtosis. So these statistical terms are required for machine learning.
Actually, I worked on statistical domain. That
Okay,
all basic things I know. I mean,
okay. That's good. Then it's easy for you to understand machine learning because biggest challenge with people in understanding machine learning is that they are not from the statistical background. Mostly
actually, I
people are
did
from the
my PhD in machine learning, but on network security field.
okay,
So
okay, okay,
I
sure.
worked in Java, but not in Python. So now learning Python for that.
Yeah. So if you need any help, let me know. I'll help you out. And it's
Yeah.
easy programming language. It's not very difficult. If you know Java, then obviously far easier than Java as compared to
Of
like
course.
Python syntactically is very easy.
May I know your LinkedIn profile so that I can connect with you?
I'm not supposed to share in this platform. Maybe you can ask the Multisoft backend team. We as instructors for any company, we are not liable to share the email IDs and
Sure.
any uh, personal details. So what you can do is you can talk to Multisoft. We have a team of multi. You already have an email ID of Multisoft, right? Ashish mail ID or Digvijay's email ID. Just drop them a mail. They'll share my details with you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Any other question, Glenda, Anurodh?
Yes, sir. I'm very interested with the topic, and I'm still wanted to uh, study in this field. So if I'm going to start, what
Uh,
would advise me to do?
may I know your background, like you are from the engineering background or what you have done, what is your experience, then it's easy for me to answer your question.
Uh, okay. I have an engineering degree. I know a little bit of Python.
Okay, okay. And any work experience you are having?
Right now, I'm teaching in engineering.
Okay. And for how long?
For 10 years already. I taught programming languages like C++
Okay,
and Python.
okay, okay. So you're already teaching for the last 10 years and you want to move your career towards machine learning in a corporate field, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And may I know your location? You're based out in which country?
I'm from Philippines.
Philippines. Okay. See, I do not know the trend in Philippines about the IT industry, how it goes on over there. But in India, what happens is, if you are from a teaching background, if you are a lecturer or from a college background, you are teaching for the last 10 years, people do not give a break in the IT industry. They see the relevant
Mhm.
IT experience. Like I'm talking about the trends in India, or I do not know about other countries. But in India, what happens is, like if you are from a teaching background, if you give your CV to your any of the IT companies, they will not shortlist it. Maybe you are very good in knowledge, they will not shortlist it. Why? Because you don't have a relevant IT industry experience. So first of all,
Yes.
you need to tweak your CV towards the IT experience. Maybe any small company, IT company of your friend, or any company wherein you can show that you are doing some freelancing or some part-time job or doing some projects. You need to tweak your CV. That is very much required. Secondly, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Can I contact you through email later?
You can contact Multisoft. Multisoft is going to direct your emails to me. You already have a
Okay.
Multisoft email ID, right?
Yes, sir.
So you contact Multisoft. They are going to connect you to me. I am not liable to
Yeah,
directly share my email IDs.
Glenda, this is Ashish from Multisoft. Thank you so much for joining the session. You can
Yes,
kindly
sir.
write off mail to us and then we can take it forward, Glenda. Okay?
Okay. Sige, thank you, sir.
And what I was talking, Linda, is that if you talk about the roadmap, so first of all, you need to learn Python. That is very much required for machine learning. It will take some time, maybe 1 month for you to become expert in Python, because Python is a very huge platform. A lot of libraries are there. So if you talk about the important libraries like NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib for machine learning, it will take some time to catch hold of all these libraries. That is the first step. You need to learn Python. Second step is you need to learn statistics, all the statistical algorithms, all the statistical terminologies like mean, median, mode, standard deviation, covariance, variance, all the statistical terminologies you need to learn. And then third thing comes implementation of those statistical methodologies into machine learning using Python. That is not very difficult. Syntactically, if you are good in Python, you can easily do it. So there are basically 3 levels. First level is Python, second level is statistics, third level is machine learning, which will take some time if you regularly do the practice. And you need to take your CV definitely in order to get a break in the IT industry, because teaching experience, IT industry do not take it as a relevant experience. So maybe you need to start a job as a fresher in the IT industry. That is fine. But if you want to shift your career, then you need to tweak your CV definitely. Okay, so I think I addressed your query. Any other questions, Glenda?
No more, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you all of you. So thanks for attending the session. And if you have any queries, kindly write an email to Multisoft. And I wish you a very happy career. Best of luck for your future endeavors. Thank you for your time. Have a great day. Bye bye and take care.